right now. There we go. So welcome to the RadCraft Industry Relief chat on the sales pivot, now that we're recording. And thanks for everybody, or thanks to everybody who is joining us. I love seeing all your faces. And I think that the sales pivot, as demonstrated by all of you showing up, is a really important conversation that all of us craft communicators are facing right now. Before I hand it over to our panelists to start talking about nitty-gritty sales stuff and answering your questions, I'll kind of get a poll from all of you. Put a hand up or raise your craft beverage if you are representing a company that has a distributor. No? All right, a couple. Yeah, Bonfire, Raleigh Farmhouse. I know Karl Strauss for sure. And other half both have their own distribution means. What about self-distribution? Anybody doing that right now? Okay, couple more hands. One of the same hands. I see you. What's up, Doug? Okay, what about if you work for a company that doesn't distribute at all? 0. Okay. And then how about if you just work for a marketing company or another sort of fringe business and you represent a variety of different business models? Because I know there's a couple of you. If your hand's not up, there's still, I'll just like let our speakers know that there's a couple. All right. Well, without further ado, Mike, I'll pick on you first. Mike is a newbie to RadCraft Industry Relief. And would you guys, our fabulous panelists today, introduce yourselves, tell us what you're drinking, and give us an idea of what your scope is like, not just at your company, but what's happening for you right now in the sales world.
Right. Well, hello, everyone. Glenn, thanks for setting me up for this, bud. See you down there. My name is Mike Singer. I'm born and raised in Rochester, New York, so northern or western New York, upstate, whatever you want to call it. My background, I was with a distributor for a long time, like 7.5 years. I worked for New Belgium Brewing for like 4 years. It was really fantastic, launched the state, and now I'm a sales manager for Other Half. We're self-distributed. I'm delivering, I'm invoicing, I'm chatting with customers and selling as much beer as I possibly can, as much as they allow me to. Sometimes I sell too much and I get yelled at. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. But yeah, it's been very interesting. Actually, just today they're allowing, they're allowing bars and restaurants with outdoor seating to open up and allow customers back in. I've had a pretty decent wave of phone calls looking for some beer. So a lot of questions about kegs and draft beer. But you know, I think kind of based on the whole point of this conversation we're going to have today is the sales pivot, and we are not currently selling kegs, and we had to shift right into selling a shitload of cans, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And it's been a crazy shift, but it's been fun. I gotta say, I've kind of enjoyed it. My girlfriend's really enjoyed it because she hasn't worked in 3 months, so she's just fine sitting at home and she loves it. So I'm a little bit jealous, but hey, gotta make the donuts. You know what I mean?
I'm muted, sorry. Thank you, Mike. Peter, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hey gang, really cool to see all your shining faces here on Zoom today. My name is Peter August, and I'm the Northern California sales manager for Karl Strauss. Karl Strauss is the 39th largest brewery. And interesting things is that we have sole distribution in the beautiful state of California. So I'm responsible for California. It's everywhere from Fresno up to the Oregon border, west to the beaches, Santa Cruz, San Francisco, east of the Nevada state line, and everywhere in between. I currently manage a team of 2 sales reps, and we have 6 different distributor partners up here in Northern California. I also call on the chain grocers that are based up here in Northern California, such as Bevmo, Raley's, Safeway, Whole Foods, to name a few. Also responsible for logistics, basically everything that entails getting the beer from the brewery up here to Northern California. So sort of a multifaceted role. Coronavirus has had a major impact on my life, on my role. I've currently been on the bench the last 3 weeks, not really been working. Many folks at Karl Strauss had been furloughed, so it's absolutely had a major impact on me. But yeah, excited to go back to work pretty soon, sounds like. Mike was talking about his area, a lot of bars, restaurants, and things are starting to open back up, and we're starting to see that happen up here. Oh, other thing, I'm based out of Sacramento, so sort of the midpoint of my territory, home of the wonderful Sacramento Kings. So, so yeah.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mike. I was really excited to host these two gentlemen specifically because they can help us facilitate a coast-to-coast conversation. And I think that they represent, not just with their current roles, but with their backgrounds, a lot of similar Venn diagrams to the kinds of business models all of us are representing today. So I will dive into my questions, and guys, I will now pick on Peter first. You know, I think all of us can agree that there's been this 180 shift from on to off-premise sales during the coronavirus outbreak, or at least the dominance thereof. And I'm curious about what suggestions you have for companies who, it sounds like the majority of our participants today already had distribution before they got, or before this outbreak. But I'm curious about what advice you have for companies who are distributing before the outbreak, and then what advice you have for all companies going forward. You're up, Peter.
Well, thanks. That's a great question. So for me, for companies that are, if you're already selling beer outside of your own pub or tasting room, I think one of the most important things that you can do right now is prioritize meaningful engagement with the chain stores in your various markets, if you haven't done this already. You know, I also think that, you know, in general, off-premise is going to be key intra and post-COVID moving forward. So in terms of the general market, so I'm talking, you know, convenience and gas, liquor, small grocery stores, there's often a very wide universe in this segment, and it can honestly be enough to make your head spin. So I think it's really important to focus on, you know, growing your business and those 20% of stores that are really doing about 80% of your volume across this market segment. And, you know, there's probably a great deal of stores that you may have not connected with yet, but offer good opportunities for volume. And the thing about that is the C&G and liquor community is often a lot smaller than you think. There's a lot of buyers that, you know, have family members that manage different stores, friends. It's very, very well connected. So I would say this is a great opportunity as well to use your top 20% of stores as a success story to gain new distribution. You know, I'm talking a lot about off-premise, but I think it's also really important you know, to continue to focus on on-premise where all that's been going on. But stay engaged with the customers that have supported you throughout the years. You know, we've been living in this age of rotating handles for quite some time now. But it's really, really important right now to have some permanent draft placements that you can count on for sampling opportunities for the end user, for the consumer. You know, one of the things I'm noticing right now is a lot of the bigger distributors and bigger breweries are going in and really trying to pull handles more aggressively than before. I've even seen and heard of some bounties on handles. And at the end of the day, just remember, one of the things I like to remember is that people buy beer from people that they like, and people that they trust, you know, and people that add value to their business. So, you know, to me, it's really important right now to get to know your customers' business as well, you know, as much as you can. For companies that are just now dipping their toes into distribution, you know, if you haven't signed with the distributor yet, and you're thinking about signing with the distributor, one of the best pieces of advice that I can give is please talk with a friend or consultant who has, you know, extensive amount of experience with distributors on the supplier end, not necessarily worked at a distributor, but someone who is engaged with distributors as a supplier, and importantly knows your market. I would say maybe even bring them to that initial meeting. Get some metrics. How many craft friendly on-premise and controllable off-premise accounts, that those are accounts where there's a decision maker available locally that can actually buy your product. How many of those are available, or how many of those are around in your target market, and what's a reasonable 90-day distribution goal? I also think it's important to maybe perhaps think of narrowing a little bit. Pick 3 brands that you want to introduce in your first 90 days. Mimic your draft and package. Sprinkle in some stuff for releases, collabs, as needed. I think that, the benefit for that obviously is brand recognition, but this also makes it a lot easier for consumers to find you on Drizzly on apps like Drizzly. We have that up here in Northern California, liquor delivery services. I mean, there's been a few times when I've used a service like this and I've seen, some sort of special release listed on the app and then it's not in stock. So having something in market available that folks can consistently buy really helps them, market. So that's all I have on that. Great question, Emily.
Great answer. And I will hand the torch over to Mike.
Yeah, I don't really know how to follow that, Pete. So nice job. I find that I'm kind of in an interesting, so New York laws are different. I don't know if you guys are familiar. So liquor stores only sell liquor. You can only buy beer at grocery convenience. So kind of an interesting dynamic there. It kind of, on this topic, I feel like maybe I harken back a little bit to my days with New Belgium. Other half, superb product, it's unbelievable beers and stuff, but it's all kind of like special release. We had core that we put into distro into package stores. We have Wegmans here as our large grocery chain. So that was a big shift for us, was moving into Wegmans and, just namely moving into package distribution, period, because all we were doing, when they hired me, I was only supposed to sell draft beer, and that kind of all went out the window 2 months ago. So I think the off-premise world is going to remain big. I don't know. In my neck of the woods, the growler fill game was big for a minute and kind of fizzled out quickly. You can go to a Sunoco and get a growler filled. I feel like maybe there might be a rise in that to kind of keep your fingers on the pulse of what's happening.
That's what they had caught.
With different ways to sell our beer in different places, like convenience stores, and getting back into doing stuff with draft in the off-premise and moving through growlers again. But I have a good feeling that we're not going to see nearly the volume that we did at the beginning of this in the on-premise. And it's going to be a big push to get back to that. People aren't going to be adding more draft lines. There's not going to be a rise in restaurants that just start popping up. So what's there is there, and it's going to be tough to get back to that level that we were at. We were moving, that's a cute cat. We were moving a lot of packaged beer through bars and restaurants that were doing curbside pickup. I think that's going to still remain, a big player through all this. And it's lost my train of thought there. I think that I really feel like the packaged beer is going to take off, and we're going to not see quite as much draft in the world, just in terms of companies kegging and the volume that it was at one point. Did I hit all the points there?
Sure did, and it's a good segue because both you, Mike, and Peter, you both mentioned the fact that your teams are leaner, and I know that I've had offline conversations with almost all of you on this call today and beyond about how sales teams just quite frankly have less people now. And so I'm curious to know what advice you gentlemen have for doing more with, or I should say having a wider reach with less people going forward. How do you do
I,
more
I,
with less, basically? Go ahead, Mike.
I, I feel like we're kind of doing it right now, right? I mean, look at all the meetings and everything that's come out of, house party, Zoom, whatever, this kind of video conferencing stuff. I feel like you can reach a lot of people. You always wanted to have that face-to-face conversation, and now you can kind of do it. I'm having a face-to-face conversation with 12 people right now that I've never met before. And I feel like you can do that. And it kind of sucks to think that, we're going to maybe have to cut some jobs and stuff, but, and I'm sure we're all spread as thin as possible, right? We're all, sales and marketing people, and we do a whole hell of a lot. I know that. So it sucks to maybe think that we have to shoulder more, but I think, we can meet with our distributors. Not currently working with distributors at the moment, but we can meet with our distributors all at once. We don't have to drive, I was driving with New Belgium. I was driving to, Syracuse, it's 2 hours away from me. Buffalo, hour and a half. I'm driving up to Watertown, 3 hours away. We don't have to do that anymore. I think this personalizes, it's more than a phone call. You get the personality, you get, the kind of body language that you get from a face-to-face meeting. And I think that this is kind of maybe where a lot of the industry might be heading, is just kind of doing stuff virtually, or, kind of connecting in this manner rather than having to be face-to-face. We kind of get our point across here and then focus on the work that we have to do instead of sitting in the car and having that 3 hours of windshield time,
Yeah.
I'm gonna hand it to Pete now.
No, so when you were talking about the driving, it was reminding me a lot. Before all this, I was spending a lot of time in the city in San Francisco, and if you look at a map in California, Sacramento and San Francisco appear to be very close to each other. However, that's not the case. I mean, there was plenty of times when my commute is 7 hours. Just the getting to the city and getting back the city, and you're trying to have a challenge like COVID. It teaches you to do things differently, and in this respect, I think we might have this opportunity to do things a little bit more efficiently. On that note, one of the things I've thought a lot about is it's really, really important, especially if you're a smaller brewery, to have everybody there be selling. I really think that every person that works for your organization can be a salesperson. And everyone, the entire brewery family needs to be a passionate advocate for your products. Some of the best leads that I've ever gotten actually is from someone who works in HR at Karl Strauss, and she has family that live in the San Jose area, and she's passed on some great leads to me and some accounts that have been really, very fruitful for us. If you have a team out there selling, I think it's really important to train them to focus on the front end of their sales pipeline. Get really good at qualifying those accounts early on, so you're not really wasting time with those retailers that just love to talk beer with a sales rep, but at the end of the day, they're probably never going to buy. And that's ditto to those accounts that they want a bunch of coasters, they want a bunch of free stuff, but they're only going to rotate you in maybe a few times a year. The other thing is to remember that I think buyers right now they have more going on than they've ever had going on before. So, mastering a quick elevator pitch that's getting them to listen to you and, piquing their interest in your product. My boss, Chad, he's a master at this. I think that, just remembering how valuable their time is and also remembering how valuable your time is really important. So I think efficiency is the only way you can really do more with less these days.
Those are really good responses, you guys. And I want to piggyback off of them into the next question, which I know you've already answered in some capacities, but I think it's a good segue. It's from Wes down at Rally Farmhouse Ales in Santa Fe. Hi, Wes. I'm glad to see you here. He's wondering about tips to get his distribution sales staff engaged in the beer. He says that they had to cut their sales guy. I'm sorry about that, Wes. And he's not sure when they'll be able to bring somebody back on. So he can only do so much himself. He's a brewer and everyone else has their role. Any advice there, guys?
Sure, I'll start. So, you know, getting distributors interested in beer in what you're selling can be really difficult, especially if they have a really large book of brands. And I've tried a lot of different things, you know, showing up at their sales meetings with, you know, pizza and beer and, you know, and doing a full tasting. We've tried incentives before, you know, putting a little extra cash in their pockets to help them out. A lot of these guys don't get paid that much. So anything that you can do for them really helps. I think, you know, having them spend time at your brewery, if that's possible, is really key. Letting them see where the magic is. We've taken distributor reps from up here from Northern California down to our San Diego brewery before, and it's given me an opportunity to get to know them as a person a little bit more, not just, you know, someone who's selling my beer. And I think also just going to the source and, you know, seeing what we do in person is really, really important. So to me, you know, having them meet more people from your brewery, bringing them out, you know, giving them that opportunity is really key.
Yeah, I think like Pete said, money always talks. Those distributor guys like to earn. You know, it can be tough depending on the house that you're with, getting people into craft beer. I know some of the houses we were with, you know, there's a lot of craft beer lovers. Some of them are just old school guys that just want to go pound, you know, bud down people's throats, and that's fine. That's great, you know. But they didn't give a shit about the craft and what it tasted like, or even any interest in trying it. But I think there's certainly a segment in every house that people are going to be passionate about beer. And I think, you know, you as a brewer or someone that can speak very passionately about a couple of beers that you want to get out kind of mainstream, you know, if they're your flagships or whatever. Just having someone that can speak passionately, knowledgeably, but not go over people's heads, not over-explain, I think is important. And just to kind of get people to rally around a great product. I also, a great story always sells. You know, tell a story about, you know, how the brewery came to be, or tell a goofy story about how your beer was named or whatever, and, you know, get people behind that. You know, make it something that they care about as much as you guys care about it. And I also think Pete's idea of getting people to the brewery, you know, those immersion trips, just kind of hanging out for a day or two, and like, man, these grounds are beautiful, or, you know, we're going on bike rides, and, you know, I took a bath in one of the tanks, and whatever, you know, just getting people excited about your brand and excited about who you are as a company. That speaks, you know, so much for engaging people that are selling the product outside of your reach.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Chloe, everyone.
Hi,
Chloe.
Hi, Chloe.
I couldn't help but hear you. I'm with the New York State Brewers Association now, but I used to work at Custom Brew Crafters in Rochester, New York, and they did most of our business was through distribution. And a good way that we found that worked for us to kind of get, you know, make a relationship with the distributors and get them behind our brand was anytime we had a big release that we were going to be putting out on stores, full days before it would release, we would have the distributors invite them to the brewery, and we'd give them appetizers and let them try the beer out of the bright tank, so that they actually really understood what the product was and what it was about. And also we kind of got to get to know them and have some fun together. So, but yeah, I agree with you guys. It's a great way is to invite them to your brewery, the distributors.
Thank you, Chloe, and welcome back. I'm really glad to see you here too. That is such a fantastic segue into a message that Laura sent. Laura Lodge is a craft beer sales and marketing expert herself, who has actually written a book on beer distribution. And she has this awesome question. How many, it's a multi-question question. How many of your off-premise accounts are meeting with you on video conference? How many are wanting samples, and are you making that happen? And how are you coordinating rollouts of new products with off-premise and social media? So Chloe, you kind of nailed it. Thanks for jumping in there. And Peter and Mike, feel free to dive into. Mike, I'll pick on you first.
Sure.
Can do. So 0. Have video conferences and have been masking, just taking the precautions. And part of my training has always been to carry samples. So I always have samples, whether it's a new product or something about it. Every time I'm going to make sure that that buyer gets the sample. It's not sitting in a cooler somewhere. Joe Blow bartender's not taking it home to get cocked after work. I mean, they can if they want, but what I always have done was to bring samples and use that as engagement that we're having. Give some facts, tell the story, like I was saying before. But yeah, I haven't actually had any Zoom meetings. But I've also been in my territory for like 14 years, so I have known everyone for a long time. I've built a lot of strong relationships, so phone calls and emails work just fine. Text messages, smoke signals sometimes, But yeah, so as much as I would like to use this technology, I don't think I've really had to yet. But I think it could be an interesting way to do it. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun with you guys right now. So, and it would be cool if I could send them a sample and we could drink it together in a Zoom meeting. That's the future, I think. I like that. Pete, take it away, homie.
Yeah, so you were just talking about sending a sample and bringing it together as Zooming. When this first started, that was exactly what I did with Bevmo. And it was a really interesting experience because, for me, a lot of selling beer is drinking beer alongside the person that I'm selling it to. So it was definitely a really interesting experience, and it's taken some getting used to. And I think that, beer sales, like on the whole, for a long time, it's always been about these face-to-face interactions, the hang, that's a part of it. So, this is a new world that we're all going to have to adapt to, for sure.
Great answers, guys, and really good questions coming in from everybody.
Yeah.
Glenn from Crafting a Brand, who set us up with Mike, so thanks again for that, Glenn, says that he's a customer service and experience geek, and he's wondering to what degree, if any, they have CS training in place at your breweries, at Karl Strauss and Other Half, or possibly other breweries that you've heard of. Peter, you want to jump in?
So can you enlighten me to what CS training is? Or
Customer service training. Yes.
Sorry.
So do you have a formal customer service training program in place? So if I'm a new hire, to what degree is management or ownership or whomever really sitting down with these people and saying, without these people that walk through the door, we're out of business. And here's a formal program or processes to make sure that you're consistently delivering on the customer service piece?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And absolutely at Karl Strauss. So we're actually San Diego's very first craft brewery. And we have really, really strong processes in place. That's a big part of what we do. Everyone who comes through our doors, actually, no matter what you do, no matter what your role at Karl Strauss is, customer service training is, something that you go through. You learn about our entire product line. Everyone who works for us has to become a certified beer server. The customer service training is a huge part of what we do.
Hey, Mike, before you answer, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I will say, you guys, so Other Half is like 15 minutes from my house. You guys do a fantastic job. And I think when you first opened, there was this mystique and maybe like too cool for you fear, right? Like these guys are going to treat me like, this New York City, Brooklyn brewery in the middle of nowhere in the Finger Lakes, right? And I think you deliver exceptionally well. I don't know if it's because I'm in there enough that they've gotten to know me, but I know a lot of people walk in there and they feel like, they're greeted warmly. If they have a question about the beer, right, you guys obviously are able to tell them the difference between this and that. So I think you guys do a great job, but I wonder if that's by chance or by design.
Glenn, I think that's a bit of both. I think that people that have come to work, and I'm fairly new at Other Half. I've only been there for 6 months, just so you guys are all aware of that. So the brewery has been up and running a little bit before I got there. So we did have some people come from Brooklyn to open this brewery. So they had a good knowledge base before they got there. But I also think that being kind of this like, I don't know, like Uber crafts, kind of thing that we are right now. People that are coming to our brewery to work there are like kind of like deeply rooted in craft beer already. I don't think we're getting people that are kind of just like looking for a job at the moment. And I think that they're they know hop varietals and flavor profiles and all this and that, and they've brushed up on who we are, know who we are, because they're excited about that. I don't know that there's any like formal training on the customer service end. I don't think so. I think that it's just kind of like a knowledge base and kind of grow and don't be a dick also, I think that's always a good foundation for any customer service role. I will say, for my previous role, the Liquid Center at New Belgium, they were highly trained on the customer service end, and that was, that was part of New Belgium's like thing, was like that Liquid Center and getting people in there and giving this experience. So I kind of can speak to both sides, where I think we're still kind of small enough at Other Half where we're not doing that like super formal customer service training, but also like New Belgium, where part of it was the experience and that tour and really kind of diving right into everything that New Belgium was. But I thank you for the kind words, Glenn, and I think we do have a great staff. We have a lot of passionate, smart people and passionate beer people on top of that. So we got a great staff out there, and we'll welcome you all to come have a beer with me sometime.
Invitation taken, Mike.
Sweet.
I have a great question here from Justin. Thank you so much for sending it over. How does social media affect your sales efforts? And he's wondering if you get cold calls from distributors on or off-premise vendors based on social media efforts.
Go ahead, Pete. Go ahead, Pete.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So social media, yeah, it's funny because I get a lot of cold calls from distributors. They're like, "Oh, we just saw that you released this beer on social media. When can we get it?" I've noticed a real uptick in it over the last, I would say, the last 2 years or so. It's been a much larger part of, and Andrew is a part of that. So it's been a much larger part of what we're doing at Karl Strauss for sure. Retailers too. I mean, like our email list has grown substantially over the years. Instagram, it's just such a wonderful place to present your beer. We've seen, massive amount of requests from accounts saying, "Oh yeah, when can we get this? This new release." So yeah, it's definitely, I've been seeing this grow quite a bit recently.
Yeah, we're huge with social media. That's a lot of our weekly meetings are when are we going to post this, and when are we going to we're not going to post for 2 days. Yeah, it's social media is huge. Personally, I'm not a social media guy. I don't use a lot. I scroll Facebook. I'll creep on your Facebook later, all of you guys. So watch out for me. But no, we a ton of pictures. It's our release schedules, pricing. What food truck we're going to have. It's a monster, and they take it very seriously, and product shots, and like I was saying, the releases, and here's the growler list that's available, or here's everything that we have in cans, or here's what's coming up 2 days from now. So yeah, it's been a huge part. As far as people reaching out, I'm sure it's garnered some phone calls that get filtered down to me. I can't say specifically that it's because of social media stuff, but I'm sure calling myself. But like I was saying, I've been in this territory for so long that I know everybody already. It kind of makes it easy. It's not fair. No.
Peter, you want to jump in on that one?
On social media? Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, for sure. It's been a large part of what we've been doing the last couple of years. You know, I would say Instagram, probably the most. You know, I'll go into, you know, a local craft Ford liquor store, for example, and they'll say, hey, we just saw you releasing this at the brewery. When are we going to be able to get it? You know, or a lot of times it'll be, oh, we just saw that this store down the street just got it. When are we going to get our allocation? So stuff like that. So sometimes, you know, it's awesome to see the interest. Distributors as well, too, that, you know, they're always chomping at the bit for the latest releases that we have. So, you know, social media has had a massive impact on our selling efforts, both with our distributors and just retailers in general.
Great answers, you guys. Laura, do you want to jump in and ask your next question? I love it, but I feel it will best come from you.
Oh, sure. It was really directed at Mike. I was just wondering, since you haven't really needed to change your approach on the street, like with your off-premise accounts yourself, are you seeing any changes inside your customers, like inside the liquor stores or inside of the accounts as a result of the pandemic? And have you guys as a company needed to pivot in any way based on the pandemic with how you approach things?
Well, so the biggest shift was all draft to all package. So that was
Right.
number one. And then it's just, there's just been a huge rise in drinking at home because that's all you can do. So we've been just selling beer, you know, through independent stores. The Wegmans Get was a pretty big deal for us to, you know, that got us into 10 stores around the city that we were able to get right into. And, you know, we're selling 5 to 10 cases a week of one particular brand through there. You know, so it was a volume push. I think the biggest thing though was we saw, I don't know, maybe a slight uptick, but at least like even for just people coming to the brewery to buy packaged beer and to get growler fills to take home. We were doing curbside, and there was a point where they were yelling at me for selling too much beer through distribution rather than having people come to get cans at the brewery. So they're like, stop, you gotta stop. You're doing too much. So it's been a really weird dynamic. That the response from the customers has been great. Like everyone's excited to see our stuff kind of wider scale out there. You know, you can go grab a 4-pack of this or that at your local beer spot or, you know, your local grocery store. So the response there has been huge, but the biggest shift was just going to all package and getting the beer to people that way.
Right. So changing your focus more on off-premise, more outlets, and pushing harder that way, and then the rest of the balance of the effort, instead of being on-premise, it's at the brewery.
Yeah.
And seeing more sales there.
Yes.
Have you changed any marketing approach? It doesn't sound like you've needed to at all. Whereas Pete has changed his dramatically about how he approaches his accounts and all of the trying to make it work without being in the stores. And it doesn't sound like you've really needed to do that.
I kind of didn't change my approach. I just changed who I was talking to, I guess. I wasn't going to as many bars and restaurants. And so I kind of shifted my focus from those on-premise accounts to the off-premise, and wasn't so much how I was doing it, but who I was talking to, you know? Yeah, I guess that's about it.
Yeah, I know everybody would love to have your problem of not having enough beer to go with everything you're selling through your distributor plus the brewery.
I like my job. I want to sell more beer. I take pride in how much beer I can sell. And
you're clearly a rock star. They're lucky.
You should tell my boss that. Please write them a letter.
That's awesome.
I'll sign that letter to your boss that you're a rock star.
Thank you. Well. Thank you. Did that answer your question, Laura?
You did. You're just not seeing as much, just a shift instead of a real change in how you're approaching your accounts. I was expecting more of a change in how you're needing to communicate with each of your accounts and how you're needing to deal with face masks and nobody actually walking into the accounts and needing to reach them another way. And it just doesn't sound like you've had to deal with that.
No, it's a lot of phone calls, but yeah, it's kind of like what do I have to sell? People get in touch with me. I work plan my week. I get in touch with who I need to get a hold of. People want something that I haven't reached out to, get hold of me, and we do it that way. And then we just deliver, mask on, and just
Nice.
wheel it on in the back door.
Very
you know?
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Super smart. What other questions do y'all have for Peter and Mike? We have a couple more minutes if anyone wants to jump in with a question or add one. I have one. So I was reading an article recently that said that consumers, whereas they used to care a little bit less about something like local or something like a flagship, are turning back toward flagships and turning back toward local beer specific choices way more frequently post-COVID outbreak. And I wanted to know if you guys are experiencing that on your hometown level where you are, or also if you're seeing that on social or just among your accounts. I'm curious to know if that locality and that flagship, I hope, presence is coming back, but I love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, so we kind of rotate through a ton of beers all the time. I have a couple mainstays, so our flagships are kind of interesting. It took me a little bit to get used to. So it was a weird dynamic, but it works really well for us. Yeah, I think I have seen and heard from my peers and friends in the industry that, you know, the flagships have bumped up, and I think it's because, you know, people can count on them. They know, I love this guy's lights. Doug, I love your light show that you got going on. What's going on over there? You're the clapper.
The new
So
sensor light.
people, you know, you look for like these flagships, you can count on them. You know what you don't have maybe as much money. You're unemployed right now. You know, you're banking on those unemployment checks, and you know, you want something that you know you like, that you know you can count on, that's going to be quality and that's going to be good every time you get it. And I have heard there's been a decent shift back to flagships. And as far as the local thing goes, I think you know, there's a lot of Chloe and Glenn can attest. There's a lot of breweries locally now, and I think during this, people have been taking it to heart to really support what's going on around them and taking care of the community and taking care of their friends that are, you know, operating and working at these breweries and trying to help keep the local scene afloat as well. So yeah, I think both are very true. The local pop and the revert back to flagship kind of thing. I don't know, it didn't come out right. Scratch that from the record. Yeah, so I think both points are very valid during all this, for sure.
I said thank you for that feedback. Peter, are you experiencing similar in California, specifically Sacramento?
Absolutely. So I think, you know, when folks have a little bit less money in their pockets, they're going to be a lot more discerning about what they spend their money on. And so I'm seeing a lot of people, if they're going to spend more, they're going to spend it on something that's local. Whereas if, you know, they don't have the money to spend, they're either going to go macro or they're going to go flagship, because flagships generally, and not due to lack of quality by any means. I mean, some of the best beers I've had is like Sierra Nevada Pale, you know, when it's fresh, or Deschutes fresh squeezed, Boot Amber. I could go on and on. And I mean, right now I'm drinking our flagship, Red Trolley. It's one of my favorite beers that we do. But flagships are generally priced a little bit less, and you can find them anywhere at the grocery store. A lot of these, you know, of course, the grocery stores are still open. So I think that has a lot to do with the shift to the flagship right now. One of the interesting things that I've been experiencing personally is, you know, Karl Strauss, we're not a local brand up here in Northern California. We're still selling a lot of beer though in my home turf, because for whatever reason, it's, you know, local. The brand is perceived as local because I live there. But for the most part, I think you are going to see, you know, when folks spend more money, it's going to be on something that when they feel like they're supporting their community. And when they want something that's cheaper, they're gonna probably either go macro beer or a flagship. That's what I've noticed.
Very well put, Peter. And great question that just came in from Laura. Peter, are you seeing any increase in sales in variety pack at Karl Strauss if you happen to have one?
So we don't have a variety pack currently at Karl Strauss. It's in the queue. We do, but we do have larger format packages. We do 12 packs of our Aurora Hoppy Alice and 12 packs of Red Trolley. And I have seen an uptick in sales in that specifically. On the whole, though, in my market, absolutely. I mean, the variety packs are flying off the shelf, whether it be at Safeway, Raley's, Total Wine, you name it. So I think that, you know, those larger formats are definitely the way to go.
Volume, yeah. Can I pick on Doug and Dennis from Bonfire and Lone Tree to answer that question? Are you guys seeing an uptick in variety packs? Hi, friends. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Dennis, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so actually before all this, variety packs for us were relatively new, maybe 18 months, but they were our bottom 2 worst performing package SKU before all this. Now they have climbed immensely. So I don't know if it's a price point. We do have many of those in our grocery stores around the Denver area. So guessing that probably helps because our grocery store sales have certainly skyrocketed. So
Thanks, Dennis. So you guys know Dennis comes from Lone Tree Brewing Company in Lone Tree, Colorado, and they distribute with Western Distributing, who also distributes Bonfire's beers from where Doug is calling from with the Great Late Show.
Hi guys, I'm Doug, Bonfire. Nice to see you all. Yeah, I would say the same thing, but I think ours is a little bit tough to say since our local Costco right down the road for the last 2.5 months has been bringing us back in, which was a huge shift for us. Went from 0 cases a week to 100 cases bi-weekly every 2 weeks, and now to 100 cases a week. And the funny thing is that we have this is actually an old one, but we have this new packaging that really helped those sales, and they sold not nearly as well at Costco as opposed to putting 4 different 6-packs in a case, putting a sticker on top and buying it that way, which is one of the weirdest things I've seen during all this. It just doesn't make sense to me, but I mean, I guess people aren't looking inside of here to see what cans are actually in there. So I think the visibility has a lot to do with it. But now we're selling 100 cases a week to the Costco that's 7 miles away, and that's been a huge help for us, and obviously has definitely added to those variety pack sales.
Thanks, guys. The questions that all of you are asking today are amazing, and I'm going to skip my announcements at the end so we have time for these last 2 that just came in, but I will put some announcements in the comments feed for you guys to have. So Dennis asked a wonderful question about how you're reaching potential new customers and expanding the brand outside of social media. Events and promotions are canceled and restricted, and there's a lot of new rules. So how are you reaching new customers in the wake of COVID? Mike, I'll pick on you.
Poor Doug. Those damn lights, man.
You're keeping it alive.
It was not my idea to put this light in here, and it's clearly not working. I think I have proof now, so I appreciate you guys being here for that.
I'm gonna
like running place or something.
Recording of this.
So I don't mean this as any like sort of humble brag or anything, but I got yelled at for selling too much beer. I haven't really needed to penetrate the market any more than I have. But I think in the event that I had to, I would, at this point with our company, I don't think busting into 7-Eleven and chain stuff is really for us at the moment. But I think there's still more indie stores that I could go into to kind of leach out there a little bit more. I think if you are in a position for volume and you have the proper team, I think the chain, the 7-Elevens, I don't know what you guys have where you live. We have drawing a blank, but whatever. Chain stores, right? You've heard of them. So I think that's a really good way, because your people are in and out of there all the time. You know what I mean? It might not be the craft destination, but it gets the product out in front of a lot of people very quickly in a lot of different places. And I think just, maybe renting a truck and just throwing cans of beer at people as you drive down the street is a great idea too. So I'm gonna end on that one.
Pro tip. Peter, what have you got for us on that one? Outside of social media, what are you guys pursuing?
So we've always been a very grassrootsy company at Karl Strauss, and one of the things that I've noticed, outside of social media, our customers actually, like retailers, have been very big advocates, especially where I'm based, Sacramento. It's very 6 degrees of separation. A lot of people know each other, and I've noticed that retailers support each other, and they're very happy to share the experiences that they've had with you, good and bad. Thankfully, with us, it's been mostly good, and so that's been an interesting thing I've noticed. Is there have been some places that have popped up, off-premise accounts, for example, that I never stepped foot in, but they started carrying our beer, went through our distributor, because their neighbor recommended them to us. Their neighbor retailer recommended us to them. So that's been something that I've noticed more lately. I mean, it's probably always been happening, but I've certainly noticed it more now.
Noted. All right, our last question, and Peter and Mike, if you both want to pop your best emails in the feed where folks can contact you, that would be wonderful. In the event that you have a question that we didn't get to, or maybe you were too shy to ask, or just want to talk to them offline. This one comes from Tony in Pagosa Brewing, or at Pagosa Brewing. Hi, Tony. Down the road from me, brew pub in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. He's wondering if you both see pricing as more of a factor in the marketplace going forward, especially with big players discounting more. Somebody grab it.
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, the fact is that folks are going to have a lot less money in their pockets than they did before. So I think that it's inevitable that pricing is going to be a factor. I think that my personal opinion is that pricing in craft got a little bit out of hand the last couple of years, and I think that you're going to see a massive market correction when it comes to that.
I kind of see it as kind of a case by case thing. Like, I'm gonna use the word niche kind of brewery. I feel like people that are coming to us or buying our product know to expect that kind of higher price point. But I think in terms of broad distribution, if you had to make a pivot and lower price to stay competitive, I could see that working in your favor as well. If that's the overall market trend. But being where we're at, where it's a lot of now it's a lot of off-premise distro, but a lot of it was just people coming to us to get packaged beer, and so you're coming to see us, kind of what you're in for and what the price is going to be. So I think it kind of depends on who you are, who you're marketing towards, and kind of what your particular market is demanding at that time. I don't know if that was too broad of an answer for you, man. I'm sorry, but
I thought it was great. You're getting a thumbs up. I like it. Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Peter, and thank you so much for everyone who participated today. You guys were so engaged, and you had so many good questions, and I imagine you'll keep the conversations going with each other and in your own respective circles. I have to do it. I want to take your screenshot, so if you're drinking something tasty, hold it up. If not, just show me your face. Thanks everybody for that. I put the hashtag RadCraft Industry Relief on here, which we greatly appreciate you using, and there's lots more to come on our plans for this chat. And then finally, I wanted to tell you guys that all of my talk of comic relief is coming true on next week's Zoom chat. We have a stand-up comedian who is also the host of the Barley and Me podcast, who is going to be coming on to talk about what life is like for stand-up comics in the wake of COVID. He's going to talk a little bit about his podcast, and he's going to tell us some jokes. His name is Ben Rice. He is the reason that Peter and I know each other. I see him laughing over there because we first met as guests on this podcast, and Ben's probably going to do some recording for a future episode of his podcast while he's on too. So lots of cool media and comedy things going on next week. The week after that, we're going to be hosting Root Shoot Malting and Traverse Image to show you all a preview of their documentary film about craft malt and the importance of local farms. And then we're going to round out June on the 25th with a conversation about content for all of you content marketers out there. So a little preview of what's to come. Huge thank you again to Peter and Mike. You guys are incredible, and I totally got my learn on today. Thank you for shedding the light. And jump in if you have any last shameless self-promoting to do about Other Half or Karl Strauss.
Keep drinking good beer. I don't care what beer it is. Just enjoy whatever you have. Hell yeah. Thank you guys for this. This was the first time I've ever done anything like this, and it was really fun. It was great to meet all you guys out there, and I hope you come out of this crazy shit on top and feeling good. So thanks for all your time and listening. And Glenn, thanks for setting this up for me. Emily, thank you. Peter, great to meet you, man. Stay in touch. I'll get some care packages. I'll get you guys info, and can't do it for everyone. Sorry, but our hope. But please, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to my email in the comments there. If you have any questions or you just want to chit chat, whatever, hit me up.
This is the last
Thanks so much.
and I guess my best advice right now is just to love each other and drink some great beer.
Kick-ass. Well, Mike and Peter, you guys have been such a delight. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and some good times. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Nice shirt, by the way, Emily.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, it's a dress.
I forgot to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can only see the top. I don't know how they work.
Peter said the same thing. So funny. Well, thanks.
Nice material.
For joining. Wes, it's great to see your face. Chloe, awesome contribution. Go team.
All right. See you next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I have emails for all of you, actually. So I'll see you guys in the inboxes.
Sweet.
Bye, friends. Love you all.